You're standing at the counter of a corner store. In your hand, a loaf of bread, a carton of milk, a can of beans. You're not buying anything extra, just what you need to make it to the next paycheck. But when the cashier tells you the total, you freeze for a second. The bread is 30% more expensive than at the supermarket outside of town. You know this because you saw the price in an ad. But you don't have a car, no time for a 2-hour round trip on the bus, and no choice. You pay. You always pay. Because hunger doesn't wait. The lights don't wait. Your child doesn't wait. And every time you pay, you feel more than just a shortage of money. You feel the system charging you for being poor. The air in the store is thick with the smell of old oil and dust, and underfoot, cracked linoleum creaks with every step. This scene repeats millions of times a day across America, not as a tragedy, but as the norm. Now imagine this, from 2020 to 2024, prices for luxury items, leather bags, electric cars, vintage wines, rose by only 7%. But prices for bread, milk, bus tickets, and electricity increased by 24%. 89% of families with below-average incomes found themselves trapped. Their inflation isn't what's shown on TV. Official figures say one thing, but your wallet tells another. Because inflation isn't an abstract graph. It's what you feel every time you count the coins in your pocket. And yes, it's not the same for everyone. For the rich, it's soft. For the poor, it's hard as concrete, and it's deliberately overlooked. In 2022, the Federal Reserve confirmed real inflation for households earning under $30,000 exceeds the CPI by 3.2%, equivalent to a hidden annual tax of $420 per family. By the end of this story, you'll understand how poverty has become a source of profit for those who should have protected the vulnerable. You'll see that behind the rising prices of bread and electricity isn't just the market, but an entire system, hidden, nameless, yet very real. This isn't a mistake. It's not an accident. It's a tax, an invisible tax on poverty. No one discussed it in Congress. No one voted on it. But you pay it every day. And today, we'll show you how it works and who profits from it. From distorted inflation indices to financial predators charging $15 to transfer $100, every detail of this system is designed to make poverty profitable. In 2022, in one of the Federal Reserve's anonymous offices, a report was printed. The paper was warm from the printer. The text was dry, restrained, emotionless. But it clearly stated, inflation for families earning under $30,000 exceeds the official consumer price index by 3.2%. 3%. This isn't just a number on a graph. It's $420 that disappear from a single mother's pocket every year. It's the difference between hot water and a cold shower in January. It's the lights going out at 9 in the evening because there's no more money to pay. You know that feeling. When money slips through your fingers like water, and the news reports keep saying, inflation is slowing down. Why is this happening? Because the CPI, Consumer Price Index, looks at the world through a distorted mirror. It reflects not your life, but an average fantasy of statisticians. In this average basket, there are airline tickets, streaming subscriptions, organic avocados. But there are almost no bus fares, cans of beans, or electricity bills. Yet the poor spend 70% of their income on exactly these things. The rich spend 15%. The CPI weighs luxury and basic needs as if everyone lives in the same world. But it's not a world, it's an illusion. And it costs you real money. This is where it gets interesting. These distorted figures don't just lie. They determine how much you get. Pensions, benefits, food stamps. Everything is tied to the CPI. If inflation officially rose by 3%, but in reality it's 6%, you receive 3% less than you need to survive. This isn't a mistake. It's underfunding, systemic, planned. In 2023 alone, this difference deprived 14 million Americans of $2.1 billion in purchasing power. Imagine, $2 billion isn't an abstraction. It's 2,000 times a million families who couldn't afford medicine, gas, or school uniforms. And all of this happens silently, without a vote, without debate. Just a number in a report. And millions pay. You pay. Every time you choose between bread and a bus. Every time you postpone a doctor's visit. The CPI doesn't notice this. but your body does. Your hands tremble with fatigue, your stomach aches with hunger, and the system that should protect actually steals. It steals not directly, but through a mirror that shows you a lie. Maria Rodriguez wakes up at 5 in the morning. Not because she wants to, because she has to. Her hands already know the way to the coffee maker before her eyes are even open. First shift at the cafe. Second, cleaning offices. 6 days a week. And still, 68% of her income goes to food, bus fare, and electricity. She doesn't drink lattes. She doesn't browse furniture catalogs. She doesn't take out loans for a rainy day. But a rainy day comes every week. Because Maria pays more for worse. Do you know that feeling? When you choose between bread and a bus ticket, because you need both, but only have money for one? Here's how it works. The rich buy rice by the sack and pay less per pound. The poor buy one small package and pay 29% more. Not because they're foolish, because they don't have a pantry. No $500 to buy in bulk. No car to bring a sack from the supermarket. Retailers have calculated this. They put the highest markup on small packages. Because they know you have no choice. You will buy it. Always. Even if it means eating beans for 3 days straight. And here's the paradox that clenches your jaw. Families earning under $30,000 spend 27% more on food and transportation than families earning over $100,000. Yes, you pay more for an old bus, for light bulbs that consume twice as much electricity, for cheap oil that clogs arteries. Poverty isn't just a lack of money. It's a premium for vulnerability. Dr. Emily Cho called it the cost of poverty. And this cost is deducted from your life by the dollar, by the hour, by the opportunity. Now look at the map. 78% of poor urban areas don't have supermarkets. Only corner stores, dimly lit shops with cracked linoleum and price tags taped over old ones. The nearest decent store is 3.2 miles away, but without a car, that's 2 hours on the bus. 2 hours Maria can't afford. So geography becomes a trap. You don't choose expensive products. You're forced to buy them. Does this sound familiar? When you stand by the shelf and count the coins in your pocket, not because you don't know the price, but because every penny determines whether the lights will stay on after 9. This isn't life. This is survival with a surcharge, and that surcharge is your daily tax on being poor. In 2021, in Detroit, buses stopped running on McIntosh Street, not because they broke down, because the city removed the route from the schedule. 120,000 people were cut off from the world. No way to the supermarket, to the hospital, to work. A driver named Leonard said then, "We didn't just transport people, we kept them connected to society." Now his bus sits in the depot under a cover of dust and pigeon droppings. The interior is empty, the seats are cracked, and this empty interior is a mirror of what's happening outside, a society that has disconnected entire neighborhoods. Do you know that feeling? When the map on your screen shows a supermarket 3.2 miles away, but you don't go there because every mile walked is 20 minutes taken from sleep, from your child, from your only chance to cook dinner before midnight. This isn't distance, it's a barrier, and it's called a food desert. 53.5 million Americans live in such deserts. 76% are in urban areas where the average income is below $40,000. The market ignores them. The authorities do too. Because the profit per square foot there is too low. Because the taxes they pay are too small. And then the corner store comes into play. The only source of food, the only choice, and the only deception. Milk at the supermarket, $3 a gallon. At the corner store, $4.10. Bread, 35% more expensive. Toilet paper, like a theater ticket. You're not paying for the product. You're paying for being born in an area that the market has declared unprofitable. The store owner isn't a villain. He's just passing on his own markup, smaller volume, more expensive delivery, higher risk. But you pay. Every day. Every dollar. And this surcharge is another invisible tax. $840 a year. $840 that won't go to textbooks, to medicine, to the future. They'll go to simply making it to tomorrow. Imagine the same package of rice. In one neighborhood, $1.50. In another, $2. Why? Because the supply chain isn't a neutral pipe. It's a filter. It only allows cheap goods to go where people buy in bulk, where there's parking, where there's a car, and where people buy one package at a time. It adds a margin at every stage, from the warehouse to the shelf. And you, who have no choice, cover this margin, not because you're foolish, because you're trapped in a desert without food, without a bus, without an exit. Do you know this taste? When you chew bread and feel not hunger but bitterness, the bitterness of overpaying for being poor. This isn't the market, it's a trap, and it works silently, without sirens, without announcements, just the creak of linoleum underfoot and an empty bus in the depot. Imagine two routes. First, a truck enters a Walmart in a Bronx suburb. 10,000 packages of rice are unloaded in 20 minutes. Second route, a rusty van pulls up to a cracked curb. The driver unloads 200 packages, and only one of them is rice. The rest, cigarettes, beer, cheap chips, same manufacturer, same packaging. But the price on the shelf is 22% higher. You're not paying for the rice, you're paying for the journey it took through 3 extra hands. The supply chain isn't a neutral conveyor. It's a selection mechanism. Wealthy neighborhoods get goods directly from the manufacturer. Poor ones, through a wholesaler, then through a local distributor, then through a food courier, who himself buys from another wholesaler. Each link takes its cut. The Brookings Institution estimated in poor neighborhoods, the chain is 2.3 links longer. Sounds abstract? Let's translate. That's 87 cents from each package. It's a logistical premium, a surcharge for not being able to buy a sack of rice. And yes, the system isn't broken. It works perfectly for those sitting in the offices of distribution companies. They don't steal, they just optimize. Their algorithms see low income density in your neighborhood and pass the costs on to you. You're not a customer, you're a side stream, and yet you pay. Because hunger doesn't choose a supplier. Does this sound familiar? When you pick up the same package you saw advertised, but pay more and don't understand why, now you know. This isn't the market. It's a calculation. Cold, precise, ruthless. The logistical premium isn't included in the CPI. It's not discussed at Federal Reserve meetings, but it's in every receipt you get. And it's growing because no one is forcing this chain to shorten. On the contrary, the longer it is, the higher the profit for those in the middle. Now look at your hands. Imagine that in every coin you give for bread, for milk, for the bus key, there's a share of this premium. You're not just buying food, you're subsidizing inefficiency that the market deliberately left in your path. And all of this in complete silence, without scandals, without laws, just an empty bus in the depot and a van driving away from the corner store with a profit you don't see, but you pay for. You get a water bill, not for a swimming pool, not for watering the lawn, just for a shower, for laundry, for a pot of soup on the stove. And on the line, fixed network service charge. You haven't used more water, but you're paying more. And at the same time, a large shopping mall outside of town gets a discount on the same surcharge. Its expenses fall. Yours rise. This isn't a glitch. This is policy. In the early 2020s, dozens of utility companies across America implemented what the Urban Institute called poverty tariffs. Small consumers, families with incomes below $30,000 paid fixed fees, regardless of volume. Large customers, businesses, developers, municipalities received personalized contracts without these surcharges. The system worked simply. The less choice you have, the more you pay for essentials. And all of this under the banner of equal terms. In reality, discrimination based on ability to pay, enshrined in state tariff codes. Why is this happening? Because the regulatory system in the U.S. is focused not on protecting people, but on profit stability. Utilities are regulated monopolies. The state grants them the exclusive right to supply water or electricity in exchange for control over tariffs. But this control is a fiction. The Federal Reserve stated in 2023, more than 60% of regulatory commission decisions are made without the participation of representatives from low-income communities. The poor have no lobbyists, no lawyers, no time to attend hearings. So when a company requests permission for infrastructure modernization, regulators nod and introduce fixed fees. But those who consume more don't pay for them. You pay, because you are the easiest target. Do you know that feeling? When you save on everything, turn off the lights, shower every other day, wash clothes by hand, but the bill is still higher than your suburban neighbors? A 2022 Brookings Institution study showed, in poor neighborhoods, electricity bills are 18% higher. Not because you're roasting a turkey in the oven, because the infrastructure there is older, network losses are greater, and green tariffs are only available to those with good credit scores. You're not paying for what you use. You're paying for where you live, for how the system perceives you. This isn't inflation. This is a poverty surcharge, and it's charged automatically, without warning, without alternatives, without the right to appeal. When basic services become expensive not due to demand, but due to a few, lack of protection, poverty ceases to be just a lack of money. It becomes a source of profit. And this profit doesn't stop at water or electricity. It penetrates deeper, into the very ability to pay. Because if you don't have a bank account, every payment is a trap. And here, at this crossroads of despair, appear those whom the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau calls financial predators. But in reality, they are not an exception. They are a logical continuation of a system that makes water expensive. If the market decides who deserves cheap water, it will also decide who deserves cheap access to money. Every first of the month, Maria Rodriguez goes to the same corner store. Behind the counter, a terminal with a neon sign, "Pay your bills here." She doesn't have a bank account. Too many questions. Too much paperwork. She only has a wad of cash and a list: electricity, water, phone. She inserts $100. The terminal takes $12. Just for the right to transfer money. $12 is 6 hours of cleaning offices. But there's no choice. The nearest bank is 3 bus rides away, and it closes at 5. And she gets off work at 6. This repeats month after month. Not because she doesn't try, because the system doesn't see her. For her, paying a bill isn't a routine, it's a luxury. And she pays for it twice, with money and with humiliation. This is called financial exploitation. And it thrives where banks have left. 14 million households, invisible to credit ratings, but brightly lit for financial predators. Payday loans, check advances, commission terminals, all operate under one code. Take the maximum from those who have no alternative. $15 to transfer 100 isn't a mistake, it's a calculation. Because if you need to pay today and your paycheck is next week, you'll pay. And you'll pay again and again, each time deeper into debt. This isn't the market, it's a trap with a price tag, and every dollar in it comes back with interest. And now a number that makes your lungs constrict: 43% of adults with incomes below $25,000 use these services every month. Every month. On average, they lose $500 a year just in fees. $500 isn't coffee in the morning. It's almost a full month's rent in Mississippi. It's medicine you can't buy. It's a child asking, "Why don't we have internet?" And all of this not because of foolishness, because the system excludes them from normal financial life, and then sells them access to their own money, as a service, as a privilege, as a commodity. The alternative finance industry earns over $9 billion a year from this. Poverty isn't a failure. Poverty is a product. Do you know that feeling? When you stand at the terminal and calculate how much will be left after the fee, not because you can't count, but because every penny determines whether your child will have lunch tomorrow. Imagine your money in your hands, but to use it, you pay more, just for the right to exist. This isn't a glitch. This is the system, and it works perfectly for those at the controls. Everything you've seen so far isn't a series of random glitches. It's a single mechanism. Its gears are perfectly aligned. The CPI understates real inflation for the poor because it assumes everyone buys organic avocados, not cans of beans. Supply chains bypass poor neighborhoods because the profit per package of rice there is lower than per sack. Regulators approve tariffs that make water expensive for those who shower every other day because they don't have lobbyists in commission halls. And banks leave, leaving behind terminals with "Pay your bills here" signs and a $12 fee. Every detail works towards one goal: to turn poverty into a stable stream of income. Not for you, for others. Maria Rodriguez still wakes up at 5 in the morning, still cleans floors in other people's offices, still pays 35% more for bread at the corner store. But now you see more than just a tired woman. You see a living example of the system. Every dollar she earns passes through 3 hands before becoming food. Every step she takes is limited not by laziness, but by geography, logistics, tariffs. She doesn't lose. She pays. She pays the poverty tax, invisible, unofficial, but very real. And she's not alone. 14 million households do the same, every day, without a break. Here's what's hard to accept. Poverty isn't a failure of this system. It's its product. From 2020 to 2024, prices for basic goods rose by 24%. For luxury items, by 7%. 89% of families with below-average incomes found themselves trapped. But the system didn't break. It worked, because while someone pays more for worse, someone else profits. And this profit isn't a side effect. It's programmed in supply algorithms, in CPI formulas, in tariff codes, in terminal fees. Poverty here isn't a tragedy. It's a resource. Do you know that feeling? When you pay for water, for electricity, for the bus, and you feel like you're giving away not money, but a part of your life? This isn't paranoia. This is a tax, an invisible tax on poverty. No one discussed it. No one approved it. But you pay it every time you choose between bread and a ticket. Every time the terminal eats $12 out of 100. Every time your electricity bill is higher than your suburban neighbors, even though you turn off the lights when you leave the room. Now, a question for you. Do you believe the cost of poverty is a hidden tax? Yes or no? Write in the comments. Because as long as we call it the market, inflation, or life, the system remains unnoticed. But if we call things by their names, poverty tariffs, logistical premium, financial exploitation, the gears start to creak, not from breaking down, from fear, fear that they will finally be seen.